Hello and welcome to Shakti for Breakfast, the podcast. First time in English, first time with an English guest. We are here today with Joanna Pitt from LA. Joanna Pitt is a business consultant, evolutionary astrologer, Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher, and producer of wellness events and media. Joanna is deeply inquisitive and passionate in using and teaching the language of the cosmos to understand how energy moves within us and reframe our experiences as divine gifts. Joanna spends her time giving private astrology consultations, teaching, singing, and conversing about the spiritual mysteries of the natural world. You can find more about Joanna's astrology offerings on joannapitt.com. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I love you guys.
Likewise. So we thought to set the stage for a really exciting conversation, we start with the first question, which is, what bores you the most right now in the spiritual scene?
Oh, I love this question. I think complacency and people looking for outside stimulation or meaning outside of themselves to grow, and then make excuses for other people and tell each other that they're better than them. There's a lot of this competitive nature on being spiritual and being an advanced person, having an advanced consciousness and feeling like their path is the only path. And I personally find this extremely boring. I don't want to be having those conversations. I want to be having conversations about how we're all elevating together, and maybe people use different tools and engaging on, how to help one another excel and grow rather than to put each other down. And I find that unfortunate.
Yeah. Oh, really boring. Yeah, I also had this idea when I was kind of new in the spiritual scene, when I was in my early 20s, that, people are going to be so different here. And then slowly I realized, actually, it's just the same how people behave with each other, at least potentially, in the not spiritual space.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting too, just as a spiritual practitioner, as a yogic practitioner, that I find a lot of different paths, just coming into contact with certain people. And maybe it's because we've been doing Kundalini yoga for so long, and Kundalini yoga really was designed to be a fast practice. You can advance very, very quickly using the tools of Kundalini yoga. So I've been doing that now for over a dozen years, which even might not even be that long, but I've seen the effect amplified so fast. So sometimes I'll find myself in a yoga class or doing breath work. And even that, I feel actually, this is kind of boring. It's not stimulating enough for me. And then that puts me on the high horse, which is the part that I don't like, right? Which is, my path is better than your path. So I think we really have to watch ourselves and watch our thoughts, and then just allow the different things to happen and having different experiences, because they all add up, ultimately bringing us forward.
Yeah, to me, it sounds a lot like this kind of like search for being judgment free, right? Because ultimately, as soon as you judge, you kind of like you put people in a certain place, in a certain position, and opposed to you, right? And I feel, but I feel you with this, like not feeling super stimulated. And like one of the thoughts I had right now when you said that is like, I just sometimes wonder, because the energy with the teacher we all have in common, right? With Guru Jagat being in Rama, with like these huge groups of like people who practice together really strongly and like fully, that sometimes the energy was so high that maybe sometimes now things feel boring and not as stimulating, because that was just like this immense energy that we kind of created together.
the word that's coming to me as you say that is fierce, because I feel, and fearless. And that when yes, when we were creating something over a number of years, it was just growing in capacity. And so we were growing, with one another, against one another, for one another. And the building and building and building of that has created something that is like an architecture, an energetic architecture that I still live in. And I carry that with me, and you carry that with you. And I feel that there is such high energy in that system that the disappointments come in where I can't replicate this. It exists already. I need to trust that it will maintain itself. And then there is that disappointment and a level of judgment or comparison for other things, like, oh, that's not worthy, or that doesn't fit into my architecture. And again, too, when we get into that compare state, we're really into separation. And then it's a real energy drain. So how do we stay in that high vibration of the frequencies that we've built around ourselves and maintain it and grow it on our own? We're just at one day at a time, right? And it's like one breath at a time, one connection at a time, one, liking your Instagram story at a time to maintain that connection to keep that architecture alive in this time of elevated consciousness. And that's really important to me. I think about this every day. I truly think about this every day. And I don't have answers necessarily, but I try to stay in that energetic flow state so that if I'm holding the frequency, I'm going to trust that other people are holding the frequency, and that we're going to maintain this on some level of consciousness.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I love how you phrase it, the energetic architecture that you're still living in. We thought maybe we'll build up the conversation and then end there. Where is the Kundalini yoga world headed? And we in it. But right now, actually, it seems like a good fit to just go there directly.
Yeah.
So maybe before we look at what's happening right now or where we see possible pathways forward, maybe you would like to reflect a little bit with us on your journey, maybe specifically. I mean, it's always nice to hear how somebody got into Kundalini yoga in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But then specifically also since 2021, since Guru Jagat's passing, how your own practice has evolved. Because I have this strong memory of you leading an AWLS daily call, like the morning after she actually died. And I have this like image in my head how you were sitting there in your room and there were the sun rays coming in through the windows. So yeah, I connect with you very much in this memory. So let's maybe take it from there. You can start as early as you want. And
sure. Then... I don't have this actually in front of me, but maybe I can find it in the course of our call. I saw a teaching that my teacher Tage had presented of why people come on a spiritual path, and mine was absolutely one of necessity. I was I just was depressed. I wasn't happy in my life. It wasn't going the way that I thought it was going to go, and I didn't have a clear path forward. So I figured something has to change and, show me something. I didn't know what it was. I don't know if I was calling to God or if I was praying or if I was just having a complete mental breakdown. But I found Kundalini yoga. Within 6 months, I was doing teacher training because the practice spoke to me so intently, and particularly the mantra and the sound codes. And because I've always been a singer, and so singing gave me pleasure. And I thought, oh my gosh, I get to sing and have a meditative experience, a spiritual experience. This is amazing. And so that led me to Rama pretty quickly. I started practicing Kundalini yoga really right after Rama had opened. And so it was just like a perfect alignment. I didn't know Guru Jagat right away. I was working and at the times that she was teaching classes. So I ended up just staying in the practice. And then eventually I managed to have a conversation with her. And then I made myself useful in the environment at Rama, which was her yoga center in Venice, California. And then one thing led to another, and I took on more responsibilities and then worked there for, I think in total was about 7 or 8 years. I mean, I'm still involved in the women's program at Korean Women's Leadership Society. It's still online, doing yoga every morning. And it's so funny, Franca, that you mentioned that, because I think about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I found that class. I watched that class August 2nd, 2021, the day after she died. And for those people that don't know, Guru Jagat, she was only 41 years old when she passed, very young. It was sudden. It was unexpected. It was completely out of the blue. But at the same time, there was such the community that she led and built and grew that I was very happy and honored to be involved with was so strong. And when I began working at Rama, even though I had taken teacher training very early in my Kundalini experience, I had no intention of being a teacher, zero. I just wanted the deep practice. I wanted to know myself better. I wanted to feel better. I wanted my life to improve. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to have better relationships. And I feel like all of that, manifested. And then as time went on, I got called of like, oh, Joanna's responsible. She'll fill in on stage. Like, we need a teacher last minute. And really was encouraged by Guru Jagat and some of the other people surrounding us to teach a little bit here and there. But, we started a Korean Women's Leadership Society in 2017. And then when COVID hit, we started practicing yoga every day, and Guru Jagat taught every day. And I did not even put my name on the Zoom for 9 months. I didn't have my video on in that period of time. And then I would sub for her. She would be late. I would do a little bit here and there. And then, so it was interesting that time, in those months, in a way leading up to her death, I felt like I need to be seen. I need to be seen as me. I can't be somebody else. I can't hide. And that's actually been part of my growth. And I know we haven't talked about astrology, but in my own natal, like in my own astrology transits and the things that are happening energetically for me, that was where things were heading. And even she and I had conversations about it, like career upgrades and leadership and being a teacher. And I kind of was a little kicking and screaming around that. I think when you're shown your destiny path, there is a big resistance that shows up a lot of, no, I can't. That's not for me, or that seems scary, or are you sure? Is that really what it says? Like, do I trust you? Right. And I think people that work in a spiritual field, or do a lot of personal healing or seeking, there are some people that I know, some people that have one astrology reading a year on their birthday. People that I would never have expected, like friends of my mother's. And I'm thinking, how long have you been doing this? She said, 30 years, And then there's others that are constantly like, oh, what does this healer have to say? And I want to get my Akashic records read. And, oh, you're a psychic? Like, let me sign up, right? So I'm a little bit more in that category, but also very much around self-discovery. So when all of this kind of came in, and when Guru Jagat died, I said, it's me. There's nobody else. And that level, and really I don't want to say the beginning of being self-reliant in a particular way, but it was really a time where there's nowhere to hide. And that's very difficult, and it's very sobering, but it's really important. And I really talk to people a lot about these moments in life, because we have to recognize them and honor them. And I remember that class as I remember crying a little bit. I remember laughing a little bit. I remember that light coming in. And I remember that there was no question in my mind that we had to practice. And that was a real seminal moment in my life. Her dying and me continuing the work that she brought forward and that offered me a lot of solace, and it continues to be really important. So I think that answered part of the question. And the part of now, where are things going is a much more complicated. I really believe that we are in a time of, as we all know, great change. I think we're in a very messy time of shifts, of realities, of consciousness, of galactic uncertainty. Earth. I think the Earth is shifting and changing. I think that we as humans are shifting and changing. There are so many people doing interesting work around this that I don't no, there's always a way in for lots of people. I mean, the gene keys is fascinating to me, and human design, and they're talking about this shift of the right angle of the sleeping phoenix coming in 2027, and or the cross of the sleeping phoenix, I think it's called. And then, in astrology, we have these major outer planets that are shifting signs, and they're making specific aspects with one another. And I feel like these are just elemental levels of consciousness that we're barely talking about, and that are so profound it's hard to grasp. And so where does that leave us, and how do we navigate through this time? And I think that Kundalini yoga was born for this time, this time of the transition into the Aquarian age. It's not 1 month and it's over. It's not 1 year and it's over. It's a real long transition period. And we've been kind of sliding into it from one direction, and we're kind of peaking now. I don't know if you've heard that, there's these researchers who believe that the Kali Yuga ended at the equinox this year, in 2025. And so, well, that's the end. And now we're just peaking at this moment. Now we've got the whole next beginning that is just being formed. And so we're seeing a lot of things fall apart. We're seeing a lot of stress, right, on our structures, not just our governments, but our spiritual communities, and how this is going to come back, how it's going to reshape. We're literally in the baby stages. I do think that this practice is incredibly helpful. I think that everyone, if they have some kind of daily practice, should be doing some kind of breath work, pranayam, to monitor their own, energy field, to do some kind of yoga, even if it's 3 minutes a day or 11 minutes a day, to find some kind of mantra or sound current or sound code that helps them get through challenging times, or just to keep them on an even keel. So there's a lot in the technology that's available. But I think what we're seeing in real time is communities falling apart. And that is really hard, because we're looking for a support system. But this is that thing that I learned on August 2nd, 2021. There's nobody but you. I'm the only one. I'm the only one going to save myself. No outside entity, no leader, no, Guru Jagat is not coming back. And that most likely it could happen again. I won't say never, but the likelihood that somebody of that caliber is going to come into my life and for the rest of my life, this lifetime, is low. That's how I feel. So now what? I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Yeah. Now, what for my part, actually, I have been kind of slowing down in the last couple of years, and I'm still feasting on all the acceleration that I got to live in her field, and with everyone around her being so strong at the time, as you said. that afterwards, since in the last 4 years, actually I felt the need to, because I don't know exactly where am I going. I don't want to go so fast. So sometimes I had to put my practice a little bit less strong. I never did not practice at all, but I really felt that a little bit of my compass has been disoriented. And sometimes I got this flattering, like, oops, this if I do this every day, this is too fast and I'm not ready yet. And then I thought, that's also a good thing to know about yourself, how to pace your spiritual practice when you have something so powerful in your hands like Kundalini yoga and meditation, that you use it wisely and not this like all in or nothing mentality that, oh my God, if I am not doing this 5 hours sadhana every day or the full times on this and that, then it's less worthy or something. But yeah, the community part of it is very, in the last time, so many yoga studios have been closing that were like physical manifestations of the community. And now I'm wondering, does this mean that we're going in the age of Aquarius, that physical yoga studios are not the place anymore to hold this kind of frequency and community? Because if everything's online, that's also not so satisfying. So yeah, it's just also a big question mark in my head. And I do realize I am open for someone like Guru Jagat. Please bring me a star and light the way. I'm totally fine with that. But yeah, I also had this moment. Okay, it's now just me, and
I think that's beautiful. And I also want to just admit too, like I slowed down, reduced my yoga as well. I was doing a lot of like, it was close to 2 hours, 2.5 hours a day. And I said, this is too much. I need to, now my mornings, I do a practice about 45 minutes, and then I go get a coffee, I go for a walk, I'm outside. So yes, I absolutely understand. And I think it's entirely appropriate to follow your own sensibility of what you need and when you want. Maybe one day you're going to say, okay, I'm ready to take this on, or maybe I'll just do a 40-day practice because there's a specific thing that I want to work out, or I want to do it in a group. But it takes a lot of energy to run a yoga studio. It's a lot of work. And it's interesting because the leader, the teacher, often is the business owner. So you're wearing a lot of hats, and that's gets very complicated, of not just being a teacher and a spiritual guide, but also being a business person and having to pay rent and having to get, pay insurance and, getting permits and whatever the things are that are required, to run the space. And there's a lot of distractions. So I know, here in Los Angeles, we're having the same conversation. How do we get together? How do we practice together? And what I'm just seeing, it's happening in much smaller groups. We're just not getting 100 people in a room anymore. We'll get 8.
Yeah, I think this whole topic around like there's nobody else but me in the biggest sense, right? But then also it's so nice to have somebody else every once in a while. But like, how do you basically keep your self autarky, even if somebody else would come in that is kind of like the same caliber? I think everybody would be happy. And like, I think I really missed her comment on what's going on right now. Like sometimes I think like I would be so curious to hear what she would say about the things happening in the world right now. And then on the other hand, I think when somebody is that big and holds so much, I think it kind of like tempts you to get out of your own like your self-responsibility in a way, right? Like but I think that was really like one of the biggest topics the last 5 years with all the turmoil in the Kundalini yoga scene, is like, how much of my own autarky do I give away? How much do I just like bow down to someone? How do I just like stay with me, but still like take all the beautiful things that somebody who is in some sense bigger than me, where I can get some teaching and some knowledge and something fresh, without just like losing myself. So for me, that's one of the things I felt was like definitely one of the topics of this like shifting of time since like 2020. And maybe it's the same of like we're the, practicing in smaller groups, or like everybody goes on their own path. Like people like Mitteline and Robert, who are just like, okay, we do our thing the way we do it, and we just keep walking, and eventually you get into spaces where you have more people in front of you, right? Or like maybe it's not every week, but maybe it's once a year or every a couple of times a year when you're in a festival that somebody else ideally organizes, and you don't have to carry the hat of doing all of that.
I have been asking this question for the last 2.5, well, really 4 years, but certainly the last like, maybe 2-3 years, which is what's it going to take to get all of these people back in the room together? Is it, and I thought about it myself, like, okay, I'm ready, I'm going to do this. And then no, I'm not ready. And do I have the right people? And I think what it is my idea is that it's going to need to take 10 or 12 people, again, a network, to say we're in. And then all of those 12 people activate their networks. And then and then we can come back together. I almost saw it as like a web where, Guru Jagat, in that, again, that energetic architecture of what was built and in this, like, you could say, and it Rama's arc line, and that those that are still energetically tied to that have a little piece, right? And so how do we activate each of those pieces, because the center has left, but it's like we've created this giant spider web, and the spider in the center is gone, but the web is still there. And then it's what that's going to take. It's going to take our efforts to maintain it and hold those the ties in between each piece to keep it strong. And that, I think that's what I was kind of saying. It's like, I feel like it's still there, but it's, there's one piece is dropped on this side and another one is dropped on that side. And so, how do we repair and come back together? Because that spider, that center is not necessarily coming back in the physical, right, in this lifetime. And I feel like this analogy can be used with whatever you're building, whether it's a business or, a family unit or any kind of structured grid. And we're creating these all the time in different scenarios, right? Like different pop-up scenarios. Even if you go to a yoga festival or any kind of retreat, you're creating your own grid for those people that are there for that day or 3 days or 5 days. And then, and then it kind of goes away. It's sort of like going to summer camp when you're a child, right? And you think, this is my family. I can't live without these people. We've done all these amazing experiences together, and, everyone's crying at the end of it, and you don't want to go home to your family. And then a week later, it's like it never happened. And then you go back the following summer and it's like my long lost sister, And so I feel that those things exist in our field throughout our lives. And then now it's just a matter of us maintaining them and holding it together. And I think that these spiritual ties or energetic ties, like, they last lifetimes. And that's another, another teacher and mentor of mine would talk about this idea that we all came together through Guru Jagat or, in this environment at this time doing Kundalini yoga because we were all priestesses together in the past, right? This idea that we were all together once in the past and that we've come back together to create, not recreate that experience, but to bring it alive in a new way in this time and space. And so now we're talking, many, many lifetimes across time and space. That is kind of a cool concept, but we're still like living in the 3D. So I'm sure it's sort of like Franca, it's like, what am I supposed to do with this information? Right. Like, does this really help me get dinner on the table and, take my dog for a walk? So you have to be a little lighthearted about it, I think.
I do remember that, I think, vaguely. I think I even know who you're talking about, but I'm not 100% sure. But one thing I wanted to say about this grid, this network, right? Like she was in the middle and she like put so many seeds out and so many people, but like then that group is also like that group of people that she kind of like collected, that she brought together. And now, and I think that was like a big feeling after her passing, that every one of us felt like, okay, now I have to step up somehow. Now I have to carry that on. Now I have to do something with it. So this kind of like activation in the whole community. And but I also do think, and I think that there's also something that we can see with people who are somewhat successful in creating a new community underneath them. I think, and maybe that's something where I have been looking for the last couple of years. It's like, how do we get back together, right? But maybe it's more about like every one of us who moves forward, who keeps the seed alive, who keeps the grid alive, who keeps the energy alive, actually accumulating their own group of community. And then I think there you're right, like getting together and like putting that collective from like a couple of us back together, and then we might be 1,000 or 2,000 people, right?
Yeah. And that's what you're doing here with this podcast, if that wasn't obvious to you. But yes, you are doing it, right? This is that. This is taking your energy field, all of the knowledge that you've accumulated in this lifetime and other lifetimes from whatever sources might be, and certainly from each other, right? And creating community, creating conversation, creating, expanding your energy and putting it out into the world so that that frequency can be caught by somebody else. There's that teaching, spirituality is caught, not taught. And so keep going, keep showing up in every moment. And these are my favorite conversations, by the way. Like, this gives me so much energy to speak to you both and to maintain this. And what it does is, like, in our spider web analogy, it strengthens it. So this tie now continues to be important, and whatever might have happened, whatever meditations that we might have done together in the past are like lit up and activated in all of our fields, and certainly in everybody that is listening to this broadcast in the future.
Yeah.
I'm just bathing it in your words for a moment. But it's true, we were this Shakti for breakfast thing. Somehow it was born, and initially we did like a daily-ish, just on the weekdays, practice in the morning in European Standard Time, because we thought, that's what we know, that's what we think is needed also for like Europe. And we thought, this is like it, we need it, we want it. And then we were like 4 people like, yeah. And then, but we still, so at one point we kind of shifted, but we had this feeling, this Shakti for breakfast thing doesn't want to die. Like, something is alive in this, and somehow it's our job, somehow painstakingly, and sometimes it's a lot of fun to keep it alive and see where it wants to take us. So like our paragliding thing that we just sit in and we see what happens, and our job is to show up. And sometimes a podcast episode is better, and one is like, okay, this was just a chat, but also fine. This one is obviously one of the better ones. But one question I've been wondering when we stay with this spider web analogy, and this, like, something needs to keep it alive, because there's this teaching that to deepen your spiritual path or to progress, you need your practice, you need a spiritual community, and to practice in community, and you need a teacher. And then there has been a lot of talk on like, do we actually need a teacher in this age, or what does it mean that the teacher and blah. But I do think it needs more than just people in community that lights up this grid. And one thing is that we link up to the energy that powered it in the first place, like the lineage and the golden chain, which was this direct flow that I felt with Guru Jagat, I feel with nobody else, that it was so easy to receive, and there's just not this flow running from my receptor from nobody else that I have encountered. And this is something I miss so much, that it was so easy to just stand there and be showered with, I don't know, anything that I needed at the time. So the question is, how do you think is going to be the way to connect with this energy? Is it enough to only have your own daily practice, your Kundalini practice? Is it enough to just be with each other, everybody in the same level in a room and practice together? Because as you said, it is very different when you have this charismatic leader, and in sociology, that's actually a term they use, like a charismatic leader, and then somebody like that leaves, and they were the architecture themselves, which is, I stop you.
Yeah,
The question was like, how do we connect with this energy?
I wish I had a very clear answer, meaning, oh, don't worry, somebody else will show up, right? But I don't know is that. I know that this path and tradition was brought to the West in the late 1960s. I know there was a major consciousness awakening that began in that time. I know that people have been learning from their teachers from all of humanity. There's been teachers and students of that's how teachings have been transmitted orally, through song, right, through dance, through yogic practice, right, like learning from one another, mimicking one another. It's how children learn how to be. They follow their parent, right? And so I don't know. And I personally, my experience is there's more power when I'm practicing in group, for sure. Because even if there's not somebody has to start, right? Somebody has to take the initiative to tune in, for example. So in Kundalini Yoga, we tune in with a mantra that opens up the golden chain, and it opens up our own vibratory field to allow data, consciousness, energy, whatever, to come through and to flow through. So it's always going to take somebody to be able to step up and say, I'm going to start. I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to lead today. And that person takes that responsibility as the teacher for the moment, right? Whether it's just a group of people that are all friends or whatever, somebody has to lead. And I think that's the nature of life. My mom always taught me, there's leaders and there's followers. And it's very hard when you're in a group of all leaders, because you still need one person to step up and say, this is the movie that we're all going to go see tonight, or I'm ordering Italian food for dinner, right? Like somebody needs to have the final say. So I think in spiritual community, it is very important. I think the teacher will show up. But I don't know. It's a very personal experience, because as you say, you've probably gone to other classes or other experiences where somebody's been the teacher and yet you don't feel the energy coming through. And to the extent that it means something to you. And so what do? Some people stop. There's a lot of people that stopped practicing Kundalini Yoga when Guru Jagat died. They said, she was my teacher and she's gone and I'm done. And then there's other people that said, she was my teacher, she's gone, and I'm going to continue. And, maybe somebody else will step up and reveal themselves. And I also would say, too, that there's levels of maturity. So my teacher, Tage, has taught, but, when she tells stories in her 20s and 30s and maybe even her 40s, like she was just very shy and she wasn't on stage. And then at some point, she got a call to teach. And so, but maybe she was in her 50s or 60s when that happened. I don't know exactly when, but I'm just using this example of sometimes that teacher doesn't come into their fullest capacity until they're at a specific energetic strength or level of consciousness that they can hold the energy for whatever. I'm just saying, using Kundalini because that's our practice, but it could be any type of yoga or any type of spiritual practice. And there's other people that, like peaked early, you know, and had a really big, you know, maybe a big following or a big energy field. And then something shifted and changed in their life. And all of a sudden they needed to pivot and do something else. So I guess what I'm saying is keep your eyes open, keep your energy field open, and allow, you know, something new to come in, because I trust in that. I've gone through enough cycles in my life at this point to know that like nothing is fixed. There is absolutely nothing that is going to stop. We're going to continue to move. We're going to continue to grow. And if we have curiosity, we'll be open to those new teachers or new energy fields that might come our way. A lot of it is shit. A lot of it is not for me, not for you, but at some point, you know, maybe it might come in, and it could be a decade from now, and it could be tomorrow, because time is fake. So, but I do think that this shift in the consciousness right now with, you know, 2024, 25, 2026, 2027 is like a whole, we don't even know what's coming on the other side of this at all.
I love what you said about being open, right? To receive a new teacher, to stumble over a new teacher when it's time for that. Because I remember when you spoke about how you found Kundalini yoga and Guru Jagat, kind of reminded me of like the time when I found Guru Jagat, and I really remember vividly that was my intention, to find somebody that could teach me something new, and I was like open to learn something new. And yeah, maybe it's always probably, I mean, that's like how I feel life happens, is like you really need to make space, and you need to have intention. And sometimes it's just like one thought you have with a big, big intention, and that opens up a new door that brings you onto a new path, brings a new person into your life. But I also want to dive a little deeper. I mean, we've been talking about Kundalini a lot, and we wanted to talk about different things. But one last thing I think we're all curious to talk about right now is like the future. Like, right, you have talked about it a bit, but this, I feel like more a Gen Z and like the new generation, and like in general, I feel like more people even in our generations are opening up more to new practices. They're searching new things. They are like generally more open to receive something. And I feel, depending on where you are, different schools, different practices resonate a bit more with people. And I like, one thought I had lately was like, do we need to reframe the practice, and without obviously removing it from the teachings and the system that works for a reason and has to be a certain way, but how to reframe maybe how we get together, how we teach, how we advertise it, how we market it, how we talk to people to reach new people. I mean, that's something Guru Jagat did in a way, right? She's like, how can I build a brand? How can I build me as a brand in a way that connects to more people than Kundalini yoga is right now? Yeah, do you have any thoughts around that? I guess is the question.
It's a great curiosity, because she focused on fashion and creation and art, music, and, you know, pop culture. Exactly. So she was very much oriented around those fun things, the big, vibrant life. And yeah, it's much better than saying we're working on the spleen for, you know, in today's yoga class, we're gonna, you know, cleanse the lymphatic system.
Yay!
So yes, probably a rebrand is due to focus on, you know, the parts of life that people are more interested and excited about. And certainly I think, again, back to that idea of like quick fix, there's a lot of people that are doing, you know, ayahuasca and plant medicine and ketamine and psilocybin. Like I mean, I know a lot of very, what I would consider straight people that are doing more experimental therapy now. I mean, they're using psychedelics for, to feel better. And some of them are very reverential and they're a little nervous and a little scared. And some of them are diving head in, straight in. And I know people that do plant medicine once a month or more, that are going down to Costa Rica and doing 7 days in a row. And to me, that is not my path. And that's personally a little scary to me, because I'm like, who are these people and is it safe? So I do think that, yeah, there's a branding issue. I personally don't talk to enough young people to understand what it is exactly that they're looking for. That's not my audience necessarily. I'm more in the middle age, get through life. But I do think it's going to need to go through a new branding, and but I do think that the technology works and that it's universal. And now it's just a matter of like, what are we using it for? I don't know. I mean, there's because the consciousness is shifting so fast, like telepathy and more and more people their intuition is coming online, or they're getting messages, or they're becoming psychic mediums all of a sudden. I mean, this is true. I talk to people who say my dead father started coming through me, like, I'm channeling my dead father, and it just started 6 months ago, and this has never happened to me in my entire life. And so more and more people are doing that. And so then it's like, is there a way to use Kundalini yoga to help and expand and guide and build and grow these parts of ourselves, the psychic parts of ourselves? And I think the answer is yes.
Is that like what you are most curious about right now? Like, how can I use Kundalini yoga to help people who have?
Yeah, I mean, as an astrologer, the what's kind of been happening for me lately is I'll read someone's chart and I can see where the energy is, where their blueprint shows them where they're naturally inclined, and then the transits or progressions, or wherever the current energy is and how they're lining up for them. So then what? So it's one thing to have a conversation and say, okay, I'm going to tell you these so your your mind can integrate it. And then your body and spirit is saying, wait, I want to take this to the next level. How do I do that? And that's where I think Kundalini comes in, as well as probably many other types of practices. And this is where too, like crystals can come in, and you can create grids. You can use plants. You can use the natural world. You can use the elements: fire, water, earth, air, ether. You can create your own, recipe, your own alchemical recipe. And that includes many modalities. And so that's where I'm working a lot now, to really understand, like, to take all of the knowledge that I have and then give you like tools to work with. And then it's up to you and to me also to use them, and then to reflect on them. And, and as Franca said, it's like, how much can I handle? I can handle a little bit. Like, I can move some crystals around, or, I can wear this, whatever, green jade or green. I think my necklace is green apatite right now. So I can do those things, and I'm going to see how I'm going to feel. And that's part of the other element here, is we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention. Who's coming into our life? Who are we talking to? What phone calls? What mail? What book is leaping out at me? What piece of information keeps repeating over and over and over? What angel numbers? What, oh, I keep thinking about Joanna. We really want to call Joanna. Like, I got to talk to Joanna, right? Or whatever that is. And that is how I'm navigating all of this, which is staying in the here and now, paying attention, observing, and then using all the tools at my disposal. And then sometimes I do it, and sometimes I don't. I mean, let's be real. Like, we're our own worst enemy in many ways. So even if we think like, oh, this is going to be the trick, this is going to, like, oh, I really want to get together with all my yogic friends. And then a month goes by, and 9 months goes by, and 2 years goes by, and we still haven't done it.
Yeah, it's It's one of my favorite Guru Jagat teachings also, that wherever something is not happening for you in your life, it's always because of a certain kind of numbing. So it's also then, if you reverse it, if you want something to happen, you just have to become less numb in some areas, which is, whether you take it from like nervous system perspective and like very somatic perspective, not that easily done as it's said, and also needs to be facilitated. But I like this thought that, okay, I've put like some, how do we say, Wattebüschel, some, like fluffy things here and there, so I don't have to deal with so many things at the same time. If I want to, I can decide and take some of them away, so there's some clear thing happening for me again.
Yeah.
I find it sometimes empowering to rest in my numbness, to know that it's like that, and if I want to, I know how to move it.
Yeah. I think there's I don't know which practice it is, but maybe it might be like a Chinese Buddhist practice to like move 17 objects in your home. Just if the energy is stagnant, exactly as you're saying, like just move stuff around. We talk about like cleaning things out, cleaning your drawers, cleaning your mind, all of this, but how do we actually move energy into that next state of being? We literally have to move things, objects, things, whatever, creating grids, because it's not enough to know that like, oh, things aren't working out right now, but like eventually this will end. Or things are so amazing right now, like I hope it never ends. So we have to keep moving, because we're constant, especially women. We cycle with the moon. We're porous, and our moods change and shift so often. We have to keep moving. There's no stagnation, and and that too is part of this. Like, yeah, maybe a new teacher will come, and maybe this will shift, and I'm moving into this period of restoration and recovery, and I'm gonna enjoy that for as long as that needs to happen, until we're ready to come out of that and then move into the next phase.
I think one of the things that you said is like this being awake to what is, right? And like with the cycling is like, what do I need right now? In which phase of my life am I right now? Do I need to rest? Do I need to numb a bit, like cozy up in my chrysalis? And when do I open up and go head on into the world again with something new, maybe rested, right? Which has so much to do with the cycles. And like sometimes we maybe have to retrograde a bit, right? In ourself, in our life, to then get more momentum and maybe collect a couple of things, right? Like,
Yeah.
it is in astrology, right? That's the story. Like, why do we retrograde? To look at stuff, to kind of rest and recover, and maybe pick something up from the past or let something go. And I think the main piece is to practice being awake to what is and what wants to be held, what wants to be let go, and moving. Yeah. Moving.
This is absolutely the most important point. Absolutely. Paying attention, giving yourself grace for whatever stage that you're in. Sometimes we stay in one of those phases a little longer than, than we ought to. And sometimes these things are time coded. Like, I really believe that when I found Kundalini yoga, that was time coded. I could not have handled it prior to that. What did it do for me beyond just, a personal practice? It opened me up to a whole new community. I didn't have friends in Europe. Now I have friends in Europe. I love it, right? That wasn't available to me before. But that's part of that, allowing the openness, the curiosity, and just the patience of these times. And, we talk about there's so many cycles that are going on. I mean, astrologically, there's the lunar cycle, which is every couple of hours the moon moves a degree. Every 2.5 days it switches signs. Every 28 days it does a complete revolution. And then up to these much longer cycles, Saturn cycle, 28-year cycle, right? The Chiron return, which is around 50 years, which is an extremely important cycle that we're just now delving into it, because consciousness is ready for it. And so I think more and more of these things are going to become available to us. And it's such a fascinating time to be alive, in my opinion. While the world is burning down in a particular way, there's so much opportunity. And I think that if we can just stay in a place of neutrality, then we're in much better shape. And I don't want to sound, I don't know if this translates, like Pollyanna, being super positive, but it's like I was incredibly negative for my whole many, many, many decades, very much led with my negative mind. So I'm like, even just experiencing that shift in myself to be able to have a conversation of curiosity and openness and positivity and faith is a huge shift. And so it's like, I gotta acknowledge that. And I just want to offer that to everyone, is wherever you're at today is exactly where you need to be. And if we can stay, faithful in ourself, that our soul came here for a specific experience, and that we're, even by virtue of being part of your community, you're already in this grid that has a very high vibration. So let it move you.
You're giving the downloads today. I love it, because I thought it was a good place to ask you the question, what was the last new thing that you got excited about in astrology? Something you learned, something you picked up, that caught your attention, that maybe is new on your own astrology menu.
That's so interesting. I'm constantly finding tools and tricks and things, and there's a wealth of knowledge of astrology for thousands and thousands of years, and I find it, I've been doing a lot of locational astrology lately, meaning looking at maps and understanding where the planets align over the earth, meaning like in different cities and things like this. And just this idea of that we all can do is go outside at night and look up at the sky and see where the moon is, right? And see if you can see any planets. And it just reminds us of where we are in the cosmic sphere. But also from a locational perspective, you really can put your arm up and put it in that direction, and then see, get your compass out. What direction is that? And then you can really kind of put yourself in time and space and work with this energy. I'm loving these, when the moon comes around and hits all the planets, these Jupiter, I call them Jupiter prosperity gates, Moon Jupiter. We have a kriya, or a meditation in Kundalini yoga, where as a prosperity meditation, we're activating the moon and Jupiter field. So I think those dates are really interesting. I think that, the Venus story is really interesting. I actually, before we got on today, I was looking it up, because I recently got a hearing aid, only in one of my ears, and I was like, what is hearing aids? I looked it up in the rulership book, and it's Saturn. And I thought, oh, this is so interesting, because I've got Saturn in the second house, which is about the senses and the sensory system. And I thought, oh, okay, Saturn, hearing aid, sensory system. Okay, this all makes sense. So just putting those things together and creating stories about, our own personal experience. Because if it doesn't mean something to you, it's not helpful. It's just not. I find it fascinating. And I like to just talking with friends and doing readings and going deeper into the archetypes, and to understand that these stories, these energies are ancient. They're not like, we're not the first person to have thought of it. And so if we can like align with these deeper archetypes, we can know ourselves a lot better, because I think that we're all playing out archetypes, some archetypes stronger than others. And then we get to move around the world. And that's where the locational stuff comes in, because then we can go around the world and have an experience of what a Jupiter archetype feel like, or Saturn, for example, or, the moon, or, Mars, for example, if you're like looking to get stuff done and you want to like get your aggression out and move forward, take action and execute, right? Sometimes we need fire to help us. So lots of things.
Yeah. I think this idea that these things are alive is very helpful to understand that at some point something is for me, and 2 months later I'm actually, I need to move on to the next thing. And just so is it also with the Kundalini teachings. They are also alive teachings. And I actually just had this thought. I don't want to, we're just going to us, but it's all linked, So, but to come back again to the question of Kundalini and teachers, was that with the mantra codes that we use from Gurmukhi, that there was also always a guru, and then there was Guru Gobind Singh, and he decided that he is the last guru. And then there was no guru anymore who was in flesh and blood, and they made the Sri Guru Granth Sahib the guru. And they literally continued to worship the book, or the what it symbolizes as a guru. It was like, there is a place with the book, and then you there are thousands of practices what you do towards the guru, which is now a sound code basically itself, but they made it like a manifest, so it's a book, but basically it's the sound that is the teacher. Yeah, I just need to head to
No,
I
had the same thought like while we were talking as well, which is that the frequencies, and this is something else I've been talking about that people need to remember. It's like, we are frequency. We're like these, if you look at, science, like music, right? Every sound has a line, has a frequency, and we're broadcasting and transmitting through our voice, which has a specific frequency. All of ours are unique and different. And that these are codes that we're putting out through every word spoken, whether it's mantra, right? Whether it's a written codex. We're broadcasting that every moment of every day. And so in some ways we're teaching ourselves, right? There's that other teaching. I know Guru Jagat gave it, but it's in the canon of teachings of self-hypnosis, and you record yourself talking. There's many versions of it. There was one that's like, what was that? Walk like a queen, talk like a sage, one of those. And, or even just for 3 minutes, exalt yourself, record it, and then play it back, because your own sound current is the highest vibration. There is no higher sound current to you than you. And same for all of us as individuals, that sound is the pulse, the heartbeat of our soul. And to be strong in our own sound will take us places that we can never really even imagine. And so the teachings that are on these vibratory levels, we can access whenever we want. We can go to them in a meditative state. We can go to them, while we're standing at the line at the grocery store. We just remember that whatever it is, right? Whether it's a specific mantra, a specific phrase, we can go to the teaching, or just even allow ourselves to say whatever I need to know, or whatever vibration needs to come my way for the next step, for the next moment, allow that and put ourselves in the frequency of it. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and waiting for a teacher to appear can be a very long and lonely road. And also, like, do we trust it? We have to trust ourselves. That's where I would say we have to trust ourselves first.
But isn't it so interesting that I feel like almost every person who has not like worked in a space where they have to continuously hear their own sound current, or they meditate, or I mean, there's practices that we do where you like fall in love with your sound current, like really pay attention to your own sound current. But I feel like the baseline of most humans before doing any work like that is like hearing themselves. It's like, this is horrible. I sound horrible, right? But then putting that opposite the teaching of like your sound current is the highest sound current for yourself. And then so many people being like, oh my God, I sound horrible. I don't want to listen to myself. So interesting.
Well, we've been trained out of it. We've been trained to, in our culture, to be scared and really to not honor ourselves or to expect somebody else to, like a parent or a teacher to tell us what to do or how to dress or how to be or how to speak. That some people have it stronger than others. Your words don't matter. Stop talking to me like that. There's all kinds of negative thought forms around our own sound and what we have to say. And so that's part of falling in love with ourself in a way and really like valuing who we are as individuals. Because if you value who you are as an individual, it doesn't matter what comes out of the mouth in a way. And that current is already inside. So it's tough.
I feel in a big sense we like that's something we've been trained out of, is like this trust of the self in all senses. Like I like how difficult it is for many of us to really learn to trust our intuition and to trust the inklings we have, to trust our faith. And I feel Kundalini yoga for me, that was one of the first things that I got from Kundalini yoga, besides the nervous system strength and the clearing up my whole energetic system, was like the coming into a place where I feel like I can trust. I am in this space within myself where I'm like, okay, now I feel like more myself. I feel like more connected and less in the world and attached to other people's opinions, and or like for people to tell me if my intuition is actually right, because the only person who should listen to my intuition is myself. Nobody else can tell me if my intuition is right or wrong, right?
Yeah. I had that was exactly the same experience that I had, which was I'm more myself and there's less of the stuff that's not me. And then the stuff that wasn't me just fell away. And so the more that we can do that, the stronger you are within I am thine in myself, right? Then the connection to spirit, the connection to soul, the connection to God is stronger and stronger and stronger. And we're open to these sound currents. We're open to teachings. We're open to expansion. If we have a strong sense of self, it's okay, like the teacher that comes through. And we're more clear about the teachers that come through, because some teachers, right, energetically, we think not aligned or yes aligned or sort of aligned, but like, I don't like this, that, and the other thing, right? So we have more discernment when we're clear in who we are. Absolutely.
I was just thinking again about this voice thing, because it's such a sensual mirror of the sound of of the frequency of your soul, because you can hear everything in the voice. And then when I learned all about these things, I got so scared because I'm like, oh my God, everybody can hear everything in my voice. Everything that I hear, everyone could potentially hear. I mean, they're probably numb to it most of the time, but technically you can hear everything in the voice, and it resounds in us, and your body feels all the areas where you know that you need to change, or where you know that there's something got stuck that isn't really you. That's why I think hearing the own voice is particularly hard for somebody who's actually kind of sensitive and smart. It's because you get this like embodied feeling of like, okay, here are my construction sites in my personal development, versus then compared to looking at a photo of you, which also most people kind of don't like or very critical of, but it hits you a little bit of differently than the actual sound that comes through.
I I think too that we obviously were our own worst critics. Like we're always hardest on ourselves. And, these things people would say, I would never talk to you the way that I talk to myself, right? Like the self-talk, the negative, the criticism, it's so intense. And so again, the more that we can be our own authentic self, the nicer we are to ourselves, which is very, very important. The other thing I would say about sound as well is that if your energy is open, if your field is open, you will feel your sound throughout your whole physical body. And if you are really watching your own sound current, see if it's stuck in a specific area. I mean, I used to sing and perform, and I also did not like looking at video or listening after the fact. But sometimes I wanted to improve my performance, but what it became clear is that my voice was like from the neck up. It sounded great, but it was totally disassociated from my body. And so again, that's part of like the yogic practice, is the embodiment of the body, right? Of like the experience of your own sound. And if the thing is moving throughout, you're just going to feel better. You're going to look better. Your glandular system is going to work. Your skin will be clearer. Your smile will be brighter. And so this whole idea of like the body mind system, again, there's so many different ways in. And I go back to pay attention, right? Pay attention to how you sound when you talk in a meeting, or to a friend, or to your mother, or to yourself, or whatever that might look like. It shows you the health in a particular way, the healthiness of your own energetic system. And because we're constantly shifting and moving, things will shift and move. And so it's never static. And again, allow ourselves, no, that wasn't so great, but tomorrow, right now is another moment, and tomorrow is another moment, and the next day is another moment. And so we constantly have the opportunity to improve. And this practice, I find, is incredibly helpful with that. And just again, staying in, doing it every day if you can, doing it a couple of times a week if you can, being in contact with somebody that's practicing, if you can, giving yourself grace of, this is a time where I'm just going to slow down a little bit and come back to it in another way, or just play mantra. That's like, to me, it's like you can do nothing, just play some mantra. Satnam sessions, really beautiful. They've got amazing, gorgeous music. Play it. Allow the sound currents to come through. It will elevate you no matter what. I really believe that. I really, really believe that. I have experience of it.
I find that teaching that with just a single breath, or a single moment of awareness, or a single second in a meditation can shift you like galaxies in your own being. And I found that always so extremely empowering, just to know it. Maybe it's just a breath, maybe it's just one moment where I can pivot out of the place I might have been drawn into in a negative way, but I just takes a moment to go out of that, and or get rid of a karmic bond, or get rid of, I don't know, a negative thought form that has haunted me since childhood, or but talking about music and you being a singer, are you doing something with that right now?
So I recorded a few mantras last year. And then, I mean, this is a perfect example of like how we can get caught up in a negative thought form, or, disbelief, or, an old pattern, for example. So I had the privilege of recording a couple of mantras, which was a little scary, but a lot of fun. And then I thought I was going to do more and release an album. And then the person I was doing it with like left town, and then it kind of got dropped. And honestly, I truly had forgotten about it. And so I have these songs, and yeah, that's on my agenda, is to get them out into the world and for people to practice. They're Kundalini mantras, and they're more like repetition, right? Because that's part of my own personal practices. I really like chanting. I think Vera, we were on the So Put It. Were you on that Did you do that one with us? The 40 days of Sopurik, and also like the Darti Hay mantra we've done.
Yeah, Darti Hay, I did
Darti Hay.
definitely with you. I'm not sure I jumped on the Sopurik. I think I thought about it, and it's been kind of like in my to-do list for a couple of years, and I've started doing a 40 days practice with Sopurik for at least 2 or 3 times, and I never made it through.
Yeah.
But I do remember, I think the first time I noticed your voice was for some sadhana, and you did just chant the Japji, I think, on, and I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. And so professional.
Yeah.
It's actually one thing that makes me feel like the community is so much alive, or the spider web group we have, Grid, is every time somebody releases some new mantra music that I really like, I'm like, things are like evolving and moving forward and being revived every time somebody like puts their twist on it and puts it in their sound current out. So please continue
Yeah.
with your mantra music. I'm always so excited when somebody releases something, most of the time, but yeah.
All right. Yeah. Any other questions or curiosity?
So we could either go into the Vastu crystal grid kind of thing, kind of like connecting to where you were talking about the astrocartography, and kind of like also the way you describe, you could just like look in the sky and point somewhere into a body in the sky and connect to that energy, to that archetype. And for me, that kind of feels like it's very connected to your work with like crystal grids and the Vastu in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like you have locked into like this technology on like different facets, right? Or into different schools. And maybe what would be interesting, because I'm not sure how many people in Germany actually know about what is Vastu and what's a crystal grid. Maybe we can just start quickly there before we dive into a bit more nerdy
All right.
conversation around it.
Okay. So the idea is that there's lots of different systems in, different cultures, like feng shui, for example, from China, just about gridding your home into different areas. And an astrology grid, the zodiac grid, I guess you could say, the chart itself, is also obviously a grid. It shows us different parts of our lives. And, the different houses are about, individual. Who am I? What do I believe in? What do I value? What do I say? What do I think? Right. Then we get into areas around family and children, playfulness, our work, our money, our relationships, our deep connections with each other, and also with God, spirit, the universe. The chart can show us about our wisdom body, our ideas about humanity, about our career, being in the public eye, being seen, issues around our health as well, our social networks, our friends, and our deep understanding of connecting through creativity, connecting to God through our intuitive faculties, our psychic faculties. And so these are all different parts of our lives that we experience every day. And so using that, our own blueprint and bringing it into the 3D, because all of it exists within our body, our energy field. Even in yogic teachings, we have planets in the fingers and in the ribs. And, so we've got this cosmology that's, as within is without. So we are a microcosm of the macro, of the universe, of the galaxy. And so this idea through Vastu is, again, to use all of that and then bring it into our home, into our grid, so that we can harness it and that we can work it out. And sometimes, we think of, maybe this term around like a cure. You can have a cure for this or a cure for that. I'm not that means something's broken and can be fixed. I don't like this idea about brokenness. Although that language appears in many spiritual traditions, including Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, around something that's broken that needs to be repaired. But my whole feeling is, let's just focus on the positive thing here and like tune in to the parts of us that want to be amplified, and the why we're here. All of us individual souls came here for a specific purpose. Why don't we lean into that? And so the way that I do that is by looking at an astrology chart and looking at the planets and where they are, and then bringing crystals in or bringing other objects, ritual objects. By the way, you can create a ritual object out of any kind of object. It doesn't need to be, ordained or prayed over, by a priest in the Vatican, for example, although that might be pretty great. So, there's all kinds of crystals that exist that are operating at different frequencies and have different healing properties. Even things like herbs, tea, essential oils, flower essences, photographs, iconography, that can be things that you've picked up or things that have been in your family that are ancestral. So creating a grid can literally be like putting things in some kind of order, right? Is taking objects and putting them in some kind of order. It also can be simply of like using the directions, east, west, north, south, and moving objects in those places. We talked about it before around, how to change the energy. You want to move some objects around. And, sometimes people will go through a breakup and they'll cut their hair, right? That's doing some kind of ritual to mark the end of something. And so this is all of the piece. This is not any different than, what people have been doing for millennia, honoring events, creation, the birth, a death, there's all kinds of rituals. And so I find it really fascinating to tie it with our planetary energies, because we might be going something. I mentioned my hearing aid and my hearing. It's like that Saturnian, right? So like, okay, I got to focus on Saturn. Saturn is telling me something. Saturn is telling me I need to slow down. I need to wake up. I need to create a new experience of myself, a new reality. I need to evolve in a particular way in my own consciousness, that maybe I've been limited in some capacity, and now I'm creating a new form to get out of that limitation. So how do I work with Saturn? Well, one, I got hearing aids so I can actually hear. And then there's, objects, and there's crystals for Saturn, like black tourmaline, for example, or onyx. I love lapis, howlite, right? There's lots of different ways to work with Saturn. There's deities, there's all kinds of things. So then I can use that. I can put it on my altar. I can create a different type of a grid or an image that represents, this energy to me. And then I can continue to work with it. And then when I'm done, I'm done. And that could be, from an astrological perspective, it might actually be like a specific date where I'm like, okay, I've made it through. Now we're like moving things around. Or maybe it's something that is a lifetime, that you're working with for a lifetime. And then I love to make grids as well for the equinoxes and solstices, and then also for eclipses, particularly eclipses that line up to something that is in my own personal natal chart, right? Because it's like coming my way, and eclipses are all about change, and they're about new timelines or new portals or closing doors and opening doors. And so we're moving through time and space in a particular way. And eclipses, as I've mentioned about cycles, eclipses come through every 18, 19 years. So we're on another, those eclipses that happened this year in 2025, might have been in your life in 2006. 2005, 2006, 2007. So we can go back and look what happened then. It gives us a guidepost, and then we can create something, whether we're using crystals for it or other types of ritual objects to mark that time. And again, back to this idea about paying attention, pay attention. Because sometimes the smallest things are making the biggest shifts, right? It might be something that you heard somebody say in class, a specific teaching, right? It might be an experience. It might be, losing your job. It might be, which is a big deal. It could be moving, could be meeting someone, getting into a new relationship, breaking up, having a baby. Lots of different things can happen with eclipses. We're not in eclipse season as we're talking right now, but we've been through one that was pretty intense, I think, for me at least. And so, yeah, working with the crystals, working with the grids is a way to harness the energy and work with it and bring it again back into the 3D so that we have something tangible, because otherwise, it's just information. We read it like you read a horoscope in a magazine or online. You were like, oh, I'm reading for Scorpio today. Great. And then 2 days later, what did you read about? No idea. No idea. Like that stuff just like goes in and right out.
I really love the way you explained it, to be honest. And I think I've never heard you or anybody else talk about Vastu and all the grids and in that way, because to me, like one thing that popped up even when you already only talked about the grids and the Vastu was like altar, right?
Yeah.
Like you have objects, you put intention, you put attention, you look at the cycles and you look at the what's happening, and you have different grids in the sky, and you have grids in the year, in the month, in your own life, and everything in a way is a grid or can be a grid and can be brought into connection, into relation, right? And like taking the sky as a grid and this present moment, but it's part of a bigger grid. The idea to just put them all together or relate them through like an intentional offering or an intentional placement. And I think I also never heard anybody talk about like using herbs in your Vastu or using like objects in your Vastu, because the way I know of it until today was, yeah, we use crystals, right? So thank you for bringing in so much more wealth to my own knowledge about Vastu today.
Yeah, if you want to make a grid, you don't have to buy 10 new crystals. You can just work with what you already have.
Yeah. I think too, even if you just wrote down on a piece of paper what it was or what it represents to you, right? So if you were putting something down for Venus, you're calling in love, for example, write it down. Like what what is the feeling of it? Or, I love Venus, put it down. it doesn't, I think as you said, the intention is the thing. And then obviously these are objects of beauty, right? I mean, crystals are absolutely gorgeous. I have so many of them on my table right now. This is a apophyllite, for example. And like, I don't know, this is this like peach calcite that I have, this sphere. I just love it. It looks like the universe to me. It's like, or Mars or this or that. It can be anything that it needs to be, but it does have a specific frequency that is calming, right? For me, this one particular. So I do surround myself with crystals. There's also, conversely, as there always is, on the polarity side, sometimes I look around, I think I have so many crystals. I don't, this is too much, right? The energy is a lot. So you could go with what works for you. But I do think that like, if you are on a spiritual path, if you are on a path of personal growth, of intentionality for this lifetime, use tools and to help that experience go through time and space. It will absolutely evolve. It will absolutely evolve and play, because it should be fun. And if it's a burden, like for me, I'm like, oh, there's so many crystals, then yeah, I'm probably going to get rid of a bunch of them. To clear them out and say like, okay, no, let me just refocus on where I'm at now to get me through the next stage and the next phase of what this, might be. And I find the language of astrology to be fascinating and endless. As you said, like, what is it getting you excited? Like, there's so many different things because they come in at different times, and everything is time coded. So, even, we were talking about the yoga. There are meditations that I might have practiced, 6 years ago that are just now opening up in me, which is really fun and interesting to consider. We don't know. A lot of people are waking up right now. So is it brand new, or was it something that was in them already that was dormant? And I was just talking to a friend of mine, and she thinks it's already in us and it's dormant and it's just waking up and it's just like turning on. Things are turning on very, very fast.
I just have to laugh because in case you haven't noticed, Joanna, behind Devaravi, there is a Venus on the wall.
Oh.
Some abstract wall art.
Love it.
Which
I
is
see.
so
Oh,
cool.
yeah, nice. I like it.
Already living in a grid.
Yeah, we are living in a grid.
Yeah.
You think we should make like a bigger collective grid for the Kundalini yoga community, and like where to best place it? How
That's
big
a
should it
great
be that it has
idea. That's a great idea. I don't know. We should think about that. We kind of have to grid the earth.
we should
Know what
have
that
we
looks
should
like.
grid the earth.
Yeah.
So because this whole yatra culture in like our world is like we go somewhere and we like gather the energy, but it's like, oh, we actually should
Now
like
what?
put an anchor there and put our energy there and
Mhm.
not just take things.
Mhm.
Which is also, of course, if you do it right, reciprocal if you gather the energy. But I always like when things get tangible.
Mhm.
It's a really interesting idea because we are a global community of sorts. So we do have people in Australia, in the US, in Europe, in Russia, in I don't know, all over. I'm not sure in Asia if Rama, like if
A little
Yeah.
bit. I remember Guru Jagat went to Singapore once
Yeah.
and taught there. So maybe.
I feel like we could keep on talking forever. And
You said there was one other topic.
yeah, so
Yeah.
one of the topics we've been thinking about was to talk a little bit about because you come from a business background, from a business perspective, and working with like the crystals and the grids and the astrology and the Vastu, what would be something that you would recommend to people who are either trying to build a business, starting to build a business, searching for their calling, like somewhere around that? And maybe you just pick up on whatever calls to you most, but kind of like bringing those two parts of you together. What would you recommend people?
I think that I think it's really important for people starting business, and part of this is advice to myself. I find whenever I'm giving a reading, half of it is because I need to hear it. And I think that that's helpful, by the way, also helpful information, which is if you're going to be mission oriented in your work, it's for a reason, right? It's often something that you need to work out for yourself. And as an offering and a gift, intention to others, whether that's a physical product or a service. And I think that it's important for people to remember that your frequency is running the business. And so the person at the top is setting the tenor, the pace for the organization. Your blocks are the blocks of the organization. Your subconscious thought forms are the subconscious thought forms of the organization. If you're scattered, the organization is going to be scattered. If you're organized, the organization is going to be organized. To know how you operate and with whom you operate at the highest capacity and caliber is incredibly important. So know yourself, know your work ethic, know your values, know your blind spots, understand how you relate to other people. Are you fiery? Which, by the way, fire is beautiful. Fire is incredibly creative, but fire is very hard to contain. And if you are running a business and you're all fire, you need somebody to help contain you. And so that's to know your energy field, know how it works, know your patterns, your own cycles. Those things I think are incredibly important as you launch your business. It's not that it's going to be, you're going to fail because you're a certain way. It's simply about knowing those things to set yourself up for success. That I think that would be my greatest advice. And I think that we can have a lot of failure, lots of stops and starts until we figure it out. And being open and receptive to guidance, but also just awareness from other people, like getting reflection back, and not necessarily going to people for advice, but actually saying like, well, how do you see me operating? Like, in what capacity am I at my best, or where are the places that are a little weaker to help build this? And I think knowing those just getting that the sensory capacity of our own experience. I don't know if I said that properly, but to know that will really guide the business moving forward. And then also to know too of like when you're done, if it's working, if it's giving you energy, if the business is taken over, that like you're servicing the business instead of the business serving you. Because there's such a strong tie, especially most of the people that I work with are, not working in big corporations. Like they're, where you're just like a cog on the wheel and you're just like, I clock in and I get paid, I do my job and I leave. And I don't know that many people that work in those types of corporate businesses anymore. And I did, but even when I did, it was still like somewhat flexible and a little bit more, it wasn't so rigid. And I think just now, just the nature of business as it is, it's like there's so many people doing online businesses. There's so many people, small businesses, entrepreneurs, and we're seeing like everybody's talking about AI taking over all of these big corporations. Who knows if that's going to happen? I'm sure it'll happen to a certain degree, but yeah, we have to know how we operate. We really need to understand our own blueprint and be cognizant, cogent, and really honest with ourselves, because otherwise we're just going to keep running into roadblocks. And one of the things that I find is hard is that there are things that people are really good at, but they don't want to do. And I don't know quite yet how to bridge that. I've always been trying to help people to get over that particular, like that hump in a way. Cause I'm in the same thing. People will say like, oh my gosh, you're so great at this. And to me, I'm already past it. I've already moved beyond it. And I think that too is an idea and understanding of what are our gifts, what does come so naturally to us. And then where are we a little bit, we don't know as much, but it's exciting. And so we also need to navigate that for ourselves of, well, I already know how to, write a business plan, but what I really want to do is dance in the ballet or whatever the thing is. And like, that's going to be a lot harder. But do we give ourselves a chance to push ourselves towards it? So again, knowing our own energy field, where we need guidance, where we need structure, where we need more play. It's fun. It's fun to discover it.
So from all the people that you know and you're working with and yourself that are business owners or entrepreneurs or just like offer something, when you look at it, of course there are some some areas where there are more people doing similar things, offering similar things. But is there maybe something where you see a little bit of a gap, or something you wish somebody would open a business up for, were it service-based or product-based? Is there any market gap you have identified
I
in
don't
your
know.
own
I
interest?
mean, as somebody that's like puts myself on strict diets all the time, I'm always looking for vegan, gluten-free, amazing food at affordable prices. So things like that. There's something for everyone. And I think that's part of the beauty of life. We get to discover. I find it interesting to see when businesses close. There's things that I've like looked, that I'm like, oh, what about that product that I used to get? And it's like long closed. And what happened to that? Why didn't it last? Why didn't they make it? There's this fashion designer that I used to buy clothing from, very popular, and the lady went out of business, and now I think she's a ceramicist and like doesn't make clothes anymore. And I want to track her down and get her to make me a dress. So no, we don't know where the path is going to take people, and so it's that we have to follow it as well, of what might have been or what potentially could be is maybe out there. We just got to find it.
Which brings us back to paying attention, right?
Yeah. And somebody needs to get all of us together to have a yoga festival, which may be me. So we'll talk about that offline.
Which elements would you need to complement
Oh,
your...
this is so great. I need fire. My astrology is I'm all earth and air. I have very little water, and like hardly any water and hardly any fire. And so I've tuned myself into the water piece because the moon is very strong in my chart, and the moon is a water energy. So I think I've got that piece of it, but the fire is very important to me. And that's why one of the reasons why I work so well with Guru Jagat is because she had a lot of fire and I had a lot of earth. And so I was able to hold that space for her. It's really important when you're working with people, I find, to understand their energy. Human design is really helpful for this as well, to understand like what's their what are their characteristics. I know some people use Enneagram or, the Myers-Briggs and stuff like that. But I like astrology and a little bit of human design as well.
So we're calling for somebody to bring fire into your
Festival
space.
organization team.
Yeah.
Maybe to round it up, anything that comes up, anything that you're doing, any events, any invites for people for the near or far future
Yeah.
that
Well,
you want?
I'd like for 2026, I'd like to teach more astrology. I didn't even realize it, but I guess I sort of took this year off in that. I really love teaching. I think there's so much to learn for myself and to learn from one another, and to literally just have these conversations, to carry on these conversations that we can learn from each other in such a different and unique way. And so I'm planning to do a little more astrology classes and online, and then hopefully in person, and then maybe a retreat or two is in the cards for 2026 to get together, and maybe we'll gather in Europe, which I think would be a lovely goal of mine to do, to bring our community together once again and to practice together and to elevate and see what might happen. So I have a mailing list on my website, joannapitt.com, if anyone's interested in signing up for that. And then I'll announce things as they come. But yeah, expect more astrology in 2026. That's my plan.
So people know where to find you. They can book you for readings and
I've
work
been
with you directly.
I do private one-on-one readings, and I've actually done a little bit of like written. I hadn't done this before, like doing personal written horoscopes, but I actually really love it. So if anyone is interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me through my website about that, and doing, again, crystal grids as well, to create a crystal grid based on your natal astrology chart or on something that might be happening for you in the current time and space. Locational astrology as well, looking at maps and where to live and that kind of thing. So all kinds of astrology. I'm a discoverer as well. I'm more flexible when I give a reading. I kind of start where the energy is and then we move where it needs to go, which I prefer. So I don't like to I'm not a formulaic reader. It's very much of an intuitive experience.
Amazing. Yeah. Well. Thank you for lighting up the grid with us today, reverberating to all the times people will listen to this in the future. And I'm excited to just create the future together, and then let's see.
I know. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure, and I love seeing both of you beautiful women.
It was a real treasure to reconnect and chat about all these things with you. And hope to see you soon. I mean, that's going to be exciting if you come to Europe for some. Been too long.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Sanam.